Okay, so this is a video about sex. This is a video about rape fantasies. So there's no way that YouTube is going to monetize this video. But I'm like, fuck it. Every now and then I just get sick of self-censoring and I want to cover this topic. Because even if I make no money from this video, it's important to talk about. But I just want to start off by thanking all of you who support me on Patreon. To have an alternative stream of income that's not dependent on YouTube honestly has saved the channel. Without you guys, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos. So for all of you who support me with whatever amount that you do, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's get into it. I want you to check out this graph. I found it on Reddit and it is a beautiful piece of data. It was collected from a survey of over 2,000 people. Now you can see here on the vertical axis, this is how popular a specific fetish is, a sexual fantasy. So you can see that alternative sex positions other than missionary, that's the most popular, along with things like female use of sex toys, light bondage, female submission. These are the things that are most popular. The things at the bottom, like creepy crawlies and necrophilia, those are extremely rare. Now, the horizontal axis plots how taboo something is. So the further along the horizontal line, the more taboo it is. So things like pedophilia, bestiality, these are the most taboo, whereas things like uniforms and dressing up, that's pretty tame. The last bit of data that this graph gives us is the prevalence of one gender to have that sexual fantasy. So the more blue a dot is, the more it's a male-specific fantasy. And the more pink, the more it is specific to females. As you can see, men are crazy. Like, look at all the weird stuff that we're into. Some of these, I don't even know what they are. I've never heard of vor, I've never heard of scat, I've never heard of futa. And to be honest with you guys, I'm too nervous to actually Google it in case I see something I don't want to. But now look at the female-dominated fetishes and you'll see a consistent theme. Spanking, females submitting, males dominating, masochism, choking, bondage, rape play. All of their fantasies center around this idea of a woman submitting to a man, often getting punished or hurt. And I want to explain the psychology of why women are so much more likely to fantasize about rape than men. This topic is really confusing for a lot of guys because in the normal world, he's hearing about how women want to be treated nicely, they want to be respected and treated kindly, but then he might go into the bedroom with a girl who says that she wants to be slapped, she wants to be choked. And it's blowing his mind apart. He doesn't know how to reconcile these two things. So while I don't claim that this is going to be comprehensive, I've put together a list of 10 reasons why women might be into male domination or rape fantasies in the bedroom. Not all of these are going to apply to every woman who has these specific fantasies, but if you have a partner who's into this kind of stuff, maybe one of these is going to click for you. Number 1. Sexual blame avoidance. Some women grow up with the message that women aren't really meant to enjoy sex. Sometimes they get this message from the family, but often it's absorbed just from the wider culture, and she feels guilty about her own sexual desires. The fantasy of rape or being forced to submit is appealing because it removes any sense of responsibility for the sexual act that's taking place. She's not responsible for the pleasure that she's feeling. Yes, I had orgasms, but I didn't want to. He made me do it. I was forced into that situation. Number 2. They're sick of men being too gentle. The fact of the matter is that women are tougher than most men realize, especially in the modern age. These days, young guys tend to treat women really softly, really delicately, and during sex it's like, can I touch you here? Can I touch you there? Is this okay? Sorry, did I hurt you? Some women find this incredibly frustrating. Stop being so delicate. I can take it. I just want a man to grab me and to fuck me. I'll be fine. Number 3. Breaking taboo. The prevalent message of Western society is that we live in this exploitative patriarchy, where men are objectifying women and using them for their own selfish pleasure. Culturally speaking, women should be identifying with this defiant feminism that refuses to be an object of a man's desire. The unintended consequence of this is that the fantasies that a woman has of being completely dominated by a man is a huge taboo, which of course makes it extremely sexually exciting. There's the thrill of doing something forbidden. She might be this proud, strong, feminist woman during the day, but at nighttime in the bedroom with her partner, she's completely submissive and does whatever he tells her to do. With that comes the sexual thrill of breaking the taboo. Number 4, to deepen her trust with her man. Women want to feel close with their man. They want to feel safe and protected. And essentially, the more trust in him that she feels, the more in love she feels. Experimenting with sex where he is dominant and she is submissive is a massive relinquishing of her power, and that's something that she could only do if she really trusted her man. If she's getting tied up, she's getting her hair pulled, she's getting spanked, choked, whatever it might be, those kind of acts are so intensely vulnerable that she could only do that with somebody that she has a lot of trust with. And it's through those acts that she's actually able to deepen her trust with her partner. Number 5. Reenacting trauma. This one's really sad, and unfortunately it's quite common. If a woman was ever raped or sexually molested as a child, she's going to be traumatized by what happened to her. The struggle for her will be to integrate what happened, to relive that experience, but this time to have power, which in the fantasy she does. In the fantasy, she has control because it's just a fantasy. It's not something that's actually happening. And this is an important distinction. Just because people have sexual fantasies does not automatically mean that they actually want to play them out in the real world. So if a woman has been sexually assaulted or subject to rape, she might play out a similar situation in her mind, in her fantasy, because it's a part of experimenting, going back into those same emotions. But because it's a fantasy, it's in her imagination, she has the control to stop it at any time that she wants. That's something that she couldn't do when it was happening for real. She couldn't just stop her mind and exit the situation. It was happening when she didn't have that kind of power. But now she does. I understand that this might sound strange, but fantasizing about the very situations that traumatized you the most can be an effective way for releasing trauma. Number 6. Proof of desirability. One of the biggest turn-ons that there is for women is the thought of themselves being massively desirable. This one can be a little bit difficult for men to relate to because essentially it's a uniquely female experience to get turned on by yourself. Essentially, when women feel sexy, they feel sexual. So in that vein, any fantasy that reinforces how desirable she is going to be a turn on. So the thought that any man in her proximity cannot even control himself, she's just so sexy, so desirable that he just has to have her right there and he even violates her consent, that can be appealing. It plays on this fantasy of I'm so beautiful, I'm so desirable that I make men lose control. Number 7, the desire to be punished. It's another sad one. If a woman has really low self-esteem and she feels absolutely horrible about herself, she's not really going to like it when men treat her really, really well and they treat her with kindness because she's thinking, what's wrong with this man? Doesn't he see how horrible I am? This makes me uncomfortable. This makes me suspicious. I'm horrible and I deserve to be treated horribly. That's my comfort zone. She will feel more at ease during sex if the man is treating her badly. You know, she's getting dominated, she's getting physically punished, but there's that reassuring thought, finally, I'm getting what I deserve. It's incredibly sad. It's tragic, but the sad truth is that there are many women out there who have been treated terribly by the people in their lives. And it's too traumatic to imagine that the world is filled with sadistic abusers. And so as a coping mechanism, they internalize it and they come to convince themselves that the reason why they were subject to such horrible treatment was because they deserved it. Number 8. To lose control. Some women get incredibly bored with always knowing what's going to happen, always being the one to plan things, always to be the one in control. And especially for the successful, like business, corporate type women, they come to really hate that. For those types of women, the appeal of a male domination fantasy is that she can't predict what's going to happen next. It's out of her hands. She has no control. He's the one making all of the decisions. It's appealing because in the bedroom, she gets taken on an adventure. She just has to do whatever she's told, and that's such a welcome change from her regular life. Number 9, male power. Deep inside the female psyche is a mechanism put there from evolution that makes women respond sexually to displays of male power. A man who is strong and powerful is a man who is capable of protecting her, of providing for her. So in this instance, the fantasy is less about her own submission, but just watching a man be a man, strong, powerful, unapologetic. It's a turn on to see that kind of raw masculinity, to be with a man who is stronger than her and can just overpower her. Lastly, number 10, accessing her deep femininity. In this increasingly gender neutral culture that we seem to have, there is this strong desire from women to feel like a woman. And the best way for her to access that deep womanhood, that femininity, is in the polarization of being with a masculine man. If masculinity is active and femininity is receptive, then sex is the ultimate expression of these two forces coming together in harmony. The very act of a man thrusting his penis into a woman, that's masculine. and the act of receiving a man's penis into your vagina is feminine. But with dominant submissive role play, they can take that polarization even further, to the point where the man is acting even stronger. He's just doing whatever he wants, and it's the woman's role to just receive whatever the man is putting out. It can get really, really intense to the point where it is physical and punishing, but so long as it's consensual, it still exists within this greater framework of harmony and allows a woman to access those deep reserves of feminine energy. Remember, this list is not exhaustive, but if you have a girlfriend who's into these kind of fantasies and you've never understood why, hopefully 1 or 2 of these have helped that click for you. It feels good to just talk about sex and not have to censor all of my words. I have a bunch of extra content on my Patreon from like 5 or 6 months back. I did a whole bunch, like a long series of more sexual content, talking about sexual fantasies and things like that. So if you want to hear me talk more about sexual topics, there's a bunch of stuff on my Patreon. One of the members of my Patreon community recently told me that he lost his virginity to his current partner, but that she had had many partners before him. She had a very promiscuous background. And what he wanted to know is whether or not it's possible for a relationship to work and function if there's a huge discrepancy in the body count. That's the topic of my latest video. In the video, I explained that yes, it is a lot harder, but that it's still possible. I talk about the 4 things that you need to be aware of, which is her pair bonding potential, your own jealousy issues, her self-esteem issues, and lastly, satisfying her hypergamy. I go into detail on all of these issues so that you can grow and learn, and if you find yourself in this situation and you want to make the relationship work, you have the necessary skills to do so. Just to clarify, I'm not recommending that you date women who've had many more partners than you do. I'm just explaining how to proceed if that is the circumstance that you want to pursue. For every video that I post here on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on my Patreon page. That means that at the moment, you're only seeing half of the total content that I create. If you want access to the other half, then please go and sign up at my Patreon page. It's just a $5 a month subscription and you get instant access to a huge back catalog of my videos. It's a fantastic way to support the channel and I would love to see you over there.